RDA, guys, where do we go from here? And we need to be real interactive here. I want you to share this piece. I want you to comment. I want the thumbs. I want some real back and forth here. And you want to know why? Because we're going to have to do this for RDA. He is not going to do it for himself. RDA is about as perfect of a fighter as you're going to come across. If you ever want to know what it means to be an MMA fighter, the lifestyles, the skills needed, the attitude, the mental approach, look no further. There's your guy, RDA. If you want to know what it takes to steer your career from a business standpoint, he's just not your guy. He's just not. That's just not how he does things. He's polite. Polite doesn't get you that far in this business. He's quiet. Quiet doesn't get you that far in this business. He is a competitor first. The result and outcome of those matches is what he lives his life for every single day when he gets up, including Sundays. I watched the Countdown show. I know all about RDA's training now, but including Sundays, which he takes off. Everything is about that sport and that competition, which generally, look, the NCAA, they make a living on that. Football and baseball and any other sport in the world, that's all that you got to do. But this is a game and this is a business. RDA's next fight needs to be a massive fight. It has to be. There's certain rules in the sport. Even if they're the rules that we're going to fiercely adhere to while we make them up on the spot, there's still rules. If you are a co-main event of a pay-per-view and you win, you do not lose your placement on the card, which means RDA gets to stay at a minimum co-main event or possibly elevate himself to a main event. Now, there's a strategy and there's a way to do that he's not going to do. That's where we come in. He's done enough for us. It's our turn. Can we agree on that? These guys that entertain us, that go through what RDA has gone through for as long as they've done it, at some point we have an obligation back. And pushing a $50 buy button and sitting on our ass isn't it. We got to help his message get out. Now, RDA's got a couple of really good claims. I don't know if he's going to go make them. And even if he does make them, I have a feeling he's going to do it politely, which maybe doesn't get heard. It's a jerk business. The business side of this favors a guy who's brash. Now, argument number one. RDA versus Conor McGregor was supposed to happen. RDA was doing a favor to Conor McGregor when that was going to happen. In that RDA was the champion of the world and he was going to give a shot to Conor. If Conor wants to be champion, he can't get there without RDA signing off on it. It's very relevant. Because they did the photo shoots, they did the press tour. This kind of digital art exists. We're not starting from scratch at square one. Not to mention that is a super compelling match. Do you guys remember that was going to go off? That started as RDA, a 2-1 favorite. Conor was too small. That was the belief. 2-1 favorite. The day that fight got scrapped, McGregor was a 2.5-1 favorite. Ireland got a hold of this stuff, said, no, we don't care. Our featherweight's putting on some size. We've heard what's going on in the gym. We're getting behind it. So it's a very interesting match that never happened. I think there's an argument there. That would be a big and massive fight. If we got RDA, Conor McGregor, we've done our job. Without question, we have now done our job as a community. We never have to do RDA another favor again if we get him Conor McGregor once. Can we agree? Okay. The other argument, and RDA hasn't made this, but the other argument is how does he ask to fight or agree to fight Islam Makhachev? Islam says no, but Islam gets the number one contenders match and RDA does not. It's an argument. It's a jumping off point. But I do think that RDA is going to have to get to a level of creativity. I don't think if we call Conor McGregor right now and we offer him the massive fights that he has, possibly a world title fight between either Oliveira or Gaethje, and Conor will probably make his mind up if he wants that based on how that match goes and whoever wins. He may not admit that to us up front, but that's fair guess by us. Massive fight with Dustin Poirier. Massive fight with Nate Diaz. The one nobody's talking about, but Conor versus Nick. I mean, he's got some massive fights out there. I don't think we could call him with that list, add RDA to it, and get Conor to sign off. Tough spot. Go back to Islam. How does Islam turn down a fight against a guy who got his hand raised, who used to be champion, and now Islam gets to go and fight in a match that if he wins, he fights for the world title, and the former champion who held up his end of it, oh, and by the way, won all 5 rounds, gets pushed to the side? No, it's MMA. We do stuff like this all the time. Everything I just told you is true, but the jury of our peers are going to be the ones that decide. So it's not fair. It's a conversation, which turns into a dialogue, which then becomes a narrative, which makes headlines. That's how you get what you want. And I do fear that not only RDA versus Conor works. Okay, you hold that thought. RDA getting a shot at #1 contendership when the guy that just refused to fight him is getting the shot also works. And whether RDA gets a hold of what he wants or not, I feel he needs to start making those arguments. He needs to turn this over to you guys. In a worst case scenario, which is he gets neither of those, where he's at right now, if he doesn't speak up, he could lose that co-main event spot, which is not traditionally how this sport is done. And then you get the guys that go, I don't care. I don't care if it's pay-per-view. I don't care if it's free TV. I don't care if it's the second fight of the night. I don't care if it's the main event. That's not what I do. Hey, fair enough. Fair enough. And most of those guys would do that and we would dismiss them, but those guys aren't RDA, who's got a decade of entertaining us at 2 different weight classes with no exception and no excuses ever, which is why I'm bringing this to you guys. Now we got to step in. And I don't know where RDA trains at. I believe he and Benny DeRouche are teammates, though. That's very relevant. Ryan, is that correct? If Benny DeRouche and RDA are teammates, you could see where that could get a little bit weird. So maybe RDA just wants to be polite. But I do feel, because don't forget this, when you call for these shots and you don't get them, you're still setting up the dialogue for next time. I see people do this in politics all the time. They go run for office, they get smashed. But in the next election, they run again. Now they got some name recognition. I've seen people become the president of the United States that lost races for Congress. I've seen people run for governor, not get it, go on to be a United States senator. I'm just saying, it's always good to get these arguments out here. In RDA's case, he's got 2 great ones. I was promised Conor McGregor. Moreover, I promised it to Conor. Now I want that favor back. What do you say, whether he gets it or not? But also this Islam business, this is pretty tough. There's a penalty for not taking fights. We know that. Islam's being penalized. He has to go and do another fight. But how does RDA get thrown out of that equation? And this is coming from a guy, I fought for a world championship at 205 pounds. I became the #1 contender. You want to know how many times I fought at 205 pounds before I became the #1 contender of that division? None. But the champion, who was Jon Jones, refused to fight me. And that's what made all of you guys interested. That's what made me interested. That's where me look around and go, maybe I can beat this guy. He sees something as one of those things. The rules of the playground carry over to the octagon. People forget that all the time. I feel like there's a whole bunch of fighters within the UFC that weren't viewed as the baddest dude in their school because they didn't know how to play that game. They didn't understand the psychological. If you were viewed as the baddest dude in your school, then go fight for the world championship. Take the same games that you did at your local high school to get that respect amongst your peers, none of which you ever beat up. You stared them down. You spoke them down. You did other things to get that. Take that into the UFC. Very few guys do it. But the Sean Stricklands and the Sean O'Malley's and the Conor McGregors and the Chael Sonnen, in all fairness, there's a way to steer your own career. We got to step in here, though, guys. My entire point, we've got to step in on RDA's behalf. So you guys get your head around it. What do you want to see him do? Do you want to see him in there with Conor? Or do we want to see him start making an argument that he should be in there with Islam and or Benny in that same opportunity? Because I do feel RDA is probably going to have to take a different path other than just keep going out there, beating people up, doing interviews, see you 3 times a year. There is such a thing as luck, but you can create your own luck. And possibly the best spot for RDA, when I'm talking about he's probably going to have to do something a little weird, what I'm talking about, Islam Benny, RDA backup fighter. We've had backup fighters for title fights before. Why can't we have a backup fighter for a massive #1 contenders fight? If that's the only way we're going to get him here, because he's not going to come out and demand it, then let's start building that story now. But I want to hear from you guys. I'm going to read every single comment. I'm going to forward them to RDA. What is it you want to see next for the former champ?